So what's going on, guys? DIY Dan here again. This is another mechanical video. In this video, my key fob for my 2017 Chevy 2500 HD with the Duramax had stopped working, and the reason for this is the battery cover clips had busted and no longer holding the battery in tight. And it was actually getting pretty gummy and nasty anyways, so I ended up going on Amazon and finding a new one for $10. Now keep in mind, this is just the housing for the key fob that we're actually replacing, and not the actual module that's inside the key fob that holds the programming to the vehicle. So if you had lost your key fob completely and are getting new ones, this video is really not going to be any help to you, because this is not going to go over the programming of a new key fob to the vehicle, because we are just replacing the outer housing and keeping the internal module that was in the old key fob. So let's get to it. So the first thing you will need to do is remove the actual battery cover from the key fob. And the easiest tool to find to do this is just a decent sized flathead screwdriver. There is a recessed area on the battery cover that you can put that flathead screwdriver in and then leverage it to pop the two locking tabs off of the one side of the key fob, and then it will slide out the back side. Now this video clip is after I'd already torn this thing apart, so I knew what I was doing. When I did it the first time, I used a smaller screwdriver and tried prying it up from each side. And that did not work nearly as good as using a bigger screwdriver in the center. Once I got that off, then I went ahead and removed the battery, and then you have to get the two chrome side covers off of the main part of the housing. This ended up being a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. Right here, I'm just trying to use that same flathead screwdriver to try and pry those off. The good news to this is I didn't have to worry about destroying the housing in the process. I just had to make sure that I did not destroy the control module inside the housing. So using a combination of picks, small flathead screwdrivers, and that bigger flathead screwdriver, I was able to get under the lip of that chrome end cap to eventually pry each side of them off. Now the location of the locking clips for each one of these end caps is right here. And there was a total of 4 of them, and that's where I ended up getting underneath there with a pick and prying those off to unclip those end caps. Once getting those off, you will need to grab that flathead screwdriver and pry apart the two black halves of the casing. Once getting the casings apart, carefully remove the circuit board or module out of the half of the casing that it stayed in. Here is the one that I bought off of Amazon, and it was $10. And here is the part number that you can search in order to find it, since it wasn't on the page that I just showed you with the remote. This remote did come with a little keychain. It also came with a screwdriver in order to disassemble the remote, even though I used some of my own tools. When I saw it in the bag, I thought it was put together, and I thought, oh crap, I'm gonna break these things getting it apart. But they were barely slipped together, so it was very easy to take apart by hand. I removed the two chrome caps and then separated the two halves of the housing. When putting the circuit board back in place, it does have to be timed correctly, obviously, so the buttons on the circuit board line up with the buttons on the housing. So you'll notice these two holes in the circuit board. There is 2 black plastic tabs in the housing that those will line up with. The tabs on the remote and the holes in the circuit breaker are a little offset, so there is no way to put it in incorrectly. If the holes line up with the tabs, then the circuit board is in properly, and you can go ahead and put the other half of the casing over the top. Once you've got the circuit board put in place, then you can go ahead and pop the battery cover off the other half of the housing. You can also wait to do this until you are completely done putting the rest of the remote together. I just decided to do it now. Once having that cover off, then I went ahead and snapped the two halves of the case together. Then I grabbed the 2 chrome end caps and snapped those on each side of that housing. Then all that's left to do is put the battery in. Both of the remotes, the old one and the new one, did have a picture showing that the positive of the battery goes up. So right here you can see that the battery clearly states that this side is the positive, and there is the part number if you need to get a battery for this remote. Putting the battery in, it does need to go under a little tab that is on the keyring side, and then you can go ahead and push the other side into place. Then all that's left to do is put the battery cover back on. There are 3 raised plastic tabs on the remote cover that go into 3 recessed areas on the remote housing. So all you have to do is put that side in place first by lining up those tabs, push it forward a little bit and then snap the other side down to lock it into place. And then all that's left to do is go verify to make sure it still works. One thing I did learn about this remote that I did not know is I knew that you could start it with the remote. However, I did not know that you could shut it off with the remote as well, so I am going to go over that. So right there you saw that I actually used the lock button, made sure it worked, the unlock, and I did the alarm as well. All three of those were working correctly. So in case you were not aware, all you have to do in order to start the engine is press the lock button and then hold the start button and it should start. Something I was not aware of, if you need to shut the engine off for whatever reason after you have started it with the key fob, all you have to do is press that start button again and hold it and it will shut the engine off. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and it gave you some good information. If so, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. The whole concept of my channel is to give you guys the most information in the least amount of time as possible so I don't waste your time. And I hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Later.